limits as you approach infinity and negative infinity when you have a square root with a rational expression here. So I'm going to show you the quick way. Again, disclaimer, this is the quick way. This is not how you would show work. Now I'm going to show you the long way to show your work. So the quick way is just take the dominant terms. So square root of 9x squared reduces to the absolute value of 3x. Be careful. Whenever you have x squared and square root, it comes back absolute value over x. So I'm just taking the dominant terms in the top and bottom. Because if you're approaching infinity or negative infinity, you're worried about what's happening in the long run. And again, this is the quick way. If I was to plug in infinity inside, the inside would be positive, leaving you with just 3. If I was to plug in negative infinity inside, the inside would be negative, so you multiply it by a negative to make it positive, and you get x equals negative, or excuse me, the answer is negative 3 instead. If they ask for the horizontal asymptote, you'd have y equals 3 and y equals negative 3. That's the quick way. But if you had to show your work, okay, here we go. Square root of 9x squared plus 4 over x minus 3. Let's say you start with a function. Notice I'm slowing down my speed here. You'd have to first factor out an x squared, leaving you with 9 plus 4 over x squared. Then the square root of x squared would be the absolute value of x. Now, that is the function you're going to evaluate. Limit as x approaches infinity, or the limit as x approaches negative infinity. If you're approaching infinity, well, in this case, that means that the inside is going to be positive, so you just remove it. In this case, this one's going to be, let's see, negatives multiplied by a negative to make it positive. Now, also in this case, you'd have to factor out the highest power of the denominator. So in that case, factor out the highest power in the denominator, I'm going to erase, but this would be the next step you'd write. I'm going to factor an x out. If I do that, I would get 1 minus 3 over x. 1 minus 3 over x. Again, I factor out an x to get to here. Now the x's cancel. If I plug in infinity, 4 over infinity goes to 0. That's the square root of 9. If I plug in infinity, 1 minus 0 give you 1, and that gives you 3. Over here, these reduce. If I plug in negative infinity, I'll get negative square root of 9 plus 0 over 1 minus 0, and I'll get negative 3. I made that look easy. With practice, I hope it is. And that's how you deal with limits as you approach plus or minus infinity, the written work way for square roots.